We want to dedicate this podcast to Will, who was with us throughout the planning and recording of the podcast, but sadly passed away before the launch.
He was a big part of the group and meant a lot to us all. He had such a presence in the group and brought great humour and laughter in every session. He was so dedicated to the podcast, to the group and to himself, and was an inspiration to us all.
Will stayed true to who he was, despite being the only male in the group. He was able to stand his ground and show his personality to us all.
We all will really miss him, and he has left a lasting legacy through this podcast. We are glad that you'll be able to hear his wisdom and insight through the next 6 episodes.
Welcome to Let's Talk Conflict. My name's Evie, I'm 20 and I'm from Yorkshire, and today I'll be a host. This is a podcast designed to create awareness around conflict and the issues that arise from it. We are hoping to provide an outlet for people to listen, share and interact. Conflict is an inevitable part of life. We all experience it differently and at different stages of our lives. Here we are speaking about it from the perspective of care-experienced young people. Through this podcast, we are going to try and build a sense of connectedness, a shared language and a shared understanding around conflict. We aim to help you see conflict in a different light and explore different ways of managing it. Some of the issues we may be discussing may be triggering for some people, so we do urge you to look after yourself and reach out for any support if you do need it. In this episode, a group of care experts talk honestly and openly about their personal relationships and experience with conflict, how they navigate through it, and share some useful tips and tricks for the future. First off, we'll let the others introduce themselves, so we'll go to Ashley.
Hiya, my name's Ashley. I'm 25 years old. I'm from Glasgow. I consider myself as a performer, and my dream job would be combining youth work and drama together, working with disadvantaged kids.
My name's Anya, I'm almost 25. I was in care from the age of 6 to 18, and then I got given a personal advisor from 18 to 25. I wanted to do this podcast so that the listeners can feel and relate to what I am talking about.
My name is Shanika. I currently work in marketing. I'm taking part in this podcast because I'm passionate about improving the lives of care leavers, and I hope that the discussions and the stories that we'll share will impact somebody in a positive way, because I know growing up in care and just being a child is quite difficult, and it's good to kind of hear what we've experienced and we can learn from each other.
My name's Will. I'm currently living in the Manchester area, unemployed at the moment. I'm actually looking for some form of employment. And one interesting fact about myself is that I am a big Manchester United supporter. I'm also passionate in helping people any way I can, and I believe that playing my part in this podcast will help people in some way.
My name's Tiffany. I'm 22 years old. Fun fact about me is I'm a single mum, and that's why there's nursery rhymes playing in the background. I'm not watching them myself, I promise. And I've really liked being a part of these podcasts because you learn something new each podcast that comes on. They're easy, relatable, and it makes you feel like there's someone there for you.
Hey guys, my name's Alice. I'm 27 and I'm from the south of England. I went into care when I was 11. I'm an interior design graduate, and the main reason I'm doing this podcast is because when I was younger and in care, I felt very angry and alone, and having a podcast like this to listen to back then that offered like support and advice on various issues I may have been dealing with would have been a great help. So I'm just hoping I can help some other people that were in a similar situation to me.
Brill. And last off but not least, Jade.
Hi, I'm Jade Kilkenny. I'm 25 and I'm from North Lanarkshire, and I'm a writer, and I would like to work with disadvantaged kids in the communities.
Lovely. So as this is a podcast around conflict, we'll start with a quick question of what's pissed you off this week. So we'll go to Ashley first.
One thing that really pissed me off this week is I've not been feeling too well, and I was like curled up in my bed, and I've been being sick quite a lot, and I didn't have enough time to get like uncurled in my bed, and I was sick in my bed, and that really pissed me off because I didn't have the energy to change the sheets. Yeah, that really annoyed me.
Right, well, we hope you feel better soon. Next, let's go to Anya.
I don't know, maybe just the general like issue with lockdown and stuff like that no one's really following the guidelines and the rules. Yeah, I just feel that that's starting to like take its toll on me now.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. Let's next go to Alice.
I'm trying to think actually, because I'm trying to take a real chilled approach to things right now. But I think actually, like what Ashley said, I've got a few like health conditions. One of them is called functional limb weakness, and it's basically, it looks like I'm having a stroke, but I'm not. There's nothing actually wrong with me, but half my body stops working, and I get like a really hot like side of my face, and it's really been getting in the way of my uni work, and I haven't got as much done as I'd like to lately. Yeah, that's been really getting on my nerves, but at the same time, it's kind of made me really grateful for the time where it doesn't kick off, and I'm feeling fine. So I just have to like use my time efficiently, and also like this is my body, and I'm lucky to have one that works as well as it does, even though it doesn't work really well. So I just have to be kind to myself and make sure that I'm not like getting really frustrated with myself, because the functional limb weakness is actually linked to stress. So if I try and calm down, it does end up getting a little bit better.
Well, hopefully you'll be stress-free for this episode, so you'll be absolutely fine. Next, let's go to Jade.
I'm quite pissed off about a few things, so I've had to really think about this. But I'm really pissed off about the fact of, like, so we're going into COVID, right? And I understand why we're going into COVID, and I know it's essential, but, like, I'm really pissed off that I can't do my lessons for driving, because I've been doing this for 4 years, right? And I've still not passed my test. Sat my test twice, right? And the last time was so stupid because he failed me because I was too close to cars. I mean, who fails you for that? God's sake, like, I'm a new driver. Obviously, I'm going to be too close to cars. So
give you a break. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just give me a break and pass me already.
Yeah, 4 years to bloody drive.
Exactly. I live in the middle of nowhere.
There's no cars around to be too close to. Just let me drive.
Oh, bless you. Well, hopefully that'll be lifted soon so you can get back to your lessons. And let's go to Shanika.
For me, this week is like just being wrongly accused for something that I didn't do, and just having rude emails sent my way. So yeah, that's what's annoyed me this week.
Yeah, that'd annoy me too, most definitely.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there at one time as well.
Yeah, especially if it wasn't, if it was wrongfully accused, then 100% I can imagine my toxic fight reaction would definitely come through then.
Yeah.
So on this first episode, we were thinking about what is conflict. So for the first question, I want us to think about, when we think of conflict, what springs to mind naturally for ourselves. So for myself, for instance, I would think arguing verbally, sometimes physically aggressive and violent. Is there anything else that anyone would possibly think when they think about conflict?
Running away, just
running away.
Going to dig yourself a big massive hole and just hide in that hole until this lockdown scenario is over. That's how I feel.
A lot of tension.
Tension, yeah, that's a good one.
I think conflict can obviously be fighting and arguing and stuff like that, but I think there can be a lot of conflict online with people arguing, people hating on each other, people trolling, and it's borderline kind of bullying as well.
Yeah, what springs to mind when I think of conflict isn't the act itself, it's how I feel after I come away. When I'm actually in it, I don't feel anything, it's just happening around me and with me and to me and from me. But when I come away, that's when I feel what's just happened to me. So that's where it kind of puts me in a mindset of like, oh God, I don't want that to happen, because I always feel like this when this happens,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, Alice, in a sense of when you're in the actual conflict itself and you just feel a rise of heat and you can't control your emotions. And it's sometimes as if your eyes just go black and you just can't think clearly. And then it's only until afterwards then I might get a bit upset, I might cry, I might then scream. Yeah. It's loads of different things, but I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing that I took from that is that conflict, it can be seen in people's eyes completely different. It can be something where it might be very aggressive and violent, or it might be something that's very inwards and, like they're wanting to run away, and fear and them types of feelings. So it's good to be aware that everyone can feel conflict in different ways. So we've kind of discussed this a little bit, but what are the main feelings that we feel when we think about conflict?
Maybe sad or like frustrated, a mixture of two at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you can be like sad, angry, and like quite tearful and that as well, depending on like, I suppose, the situation and stuff like that. You can like be happy for like, I don't know, one bit and then like sad the next. Yeah.
A mixture.
Definitely.
So it's a mixture between like disheartened and like, I don't know if there's a word for it, but like that feeling of that you feel like somebody's taking something away from you. You feel like you're missing something, but you don't know what it is that you're missing. It can really like put you off track for quite a long time. So like it lasts longer than a day, and then you end up like getting into this cycle of like feeling this feeling, and then it disrupts your sleep, and then it disrupts your diet, and then it, do you know what I mean? So it like creates other things as well.
Yeah, I was like, from what Jade has just said, like, I think at the initial conflict, when it starts, I feel really kind of like, I freeze and I'm like, God, what do I say? And then it'll get to a point where I've gathered myself and I will start like getting angry, and then like I've got better over the years, but usually I'm angry, but I say the right words and I make myself very clear of how I feel. But yeah, like Jade said, it's the aftermath that I find like really quite difficult, because you're like, oh, should I have said that? Like, it's going to be awkward if I see them again. And then sometimes you've been waiting to say this for so long because they've been annoying you so much. And then it all comes out and you're like, oh, that's great. I feel so much better now. You don't even care about what happens when you see them next. You're like, I said what I said. You know, sorry, not sorry. And also it depends as well about who you're having conflict with. Like, I remember when with my ex when I was younger, I was a lot younger, I was about 17, and like we'd argue. He was like emotionally abusive, so gaslight me and stuff. But after the argument, I'd be so like desperate and devastated, and nothing felt right, and I just completely felt like I was in the sea and there was like tidal waves just coming at me, and I didn't know how to like save myself. And so yeah, there's some really different emotions that come from different conflicts with different people. Like the relationship between people is very different.
I felt a lot of what you were saying there, and especially about that conflict can be different with different people. I mean, and especially it can be different in different stages of the conflict. So when it's first happening, or where it's at its peak, where it's most heated or whatever, and then maybe afterwards when it's not as heated. That is, for me, one of the main feelings that I think of is feeling alone, because I always think that maybe I've overreacted too much. I'm a psychopath. Like my reactions aren't normal. Just loads of different things, I think. And it's always trying to remind yourself that you're not alone, but that is quite a natural thing to think of when you are in conflict.
I think with me, the feelings that I get in conflict, it depends whether I'm in conflict with someone or I'm in conflict with myself. So if I'm in conflict with someone, it depends how close I am to them. I might be angry, I might be frustrated, depending on what the scenario is. But if I'm in conflict with myself, it's very much I'm confused and tormenting myself. I don't really know the words to describe it, but it's like, because it's myself I'm arguing with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really know. Turmoil. And it's like, yeah, exactly, that kind of turmoil. And it's like, I don't really know until afterwards, until I've calmed down or whatever it is that I'm confused about. Yeah. Conflict's difficult.
Just keep going, because like you're like, I feel like I've just not got enough out, so you keep going. Especially when you're talking about the fact of like, depends on who it is. If it's somebody you care about, you feel like you do it more because you're like, I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to get hurt either. So you're like, I just want to run away.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, I totally agree with what you're saying, Ashley. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, sometimes you can feel a sense of powerlessness. Again, going back to the relationships that you're in. So, for example, sometimes in work situations, sometimes you just can't say anything. You just have to just go with the flow, because sometimes things can get misinterpreted and people can bring out stereotypes as well. So sometimes you just feel powerless in certain situations. But I guess a tip that I've learned is always to not respond straight away, especially when it comes to emails, but just take time out, get your thoughts together, and then respond when you're in a calm manner.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned.
That's something that I've taken as well. And I think that's brilliant to use in a work environment, but also it can be really good with people, your friends, and also family members. If you're getting in conflict with people like that, sometimes you can say things, you'll respond straight away to something. Whereas if you waited a little while, or if you'd maybe, what I sometimes do is I'll write a message down and then I'll go back to it maybe a couple of hours later, and then I might go back to it the next day and see whether I still feel the same and just add to it. So it's the same thing of taking time, and that time allows you to have that cooling off period from when the conflict first arises and you're just blocked with emotion. You can't think because the main emotions are just overpowering what you're actually wanting to achieve, which isn't always a heated conflict.
Yeah, and I think the same could be said about situations with social workers or PAs as well, because, I mean, we all know that some of them will wind you up to get a rise out of you, and the second that you, no matter what they've done, the second that you do something that's inappropriate, because no matter what anyone's done, it doesn't mean that you're then allowed to be inappropriate. Like, two wrongs don't make a right. And I think that not biting and maybe just letting the situation happen, keep calm, and then go away and put that in writing about, one, what they said, two, how it made you feel, and three, what you think the resolution could be, and maybe set some boundaries as well. So obviously, also, if you email that to them, that's then in writing, so there's proof that you've dealt with it really well, and at the end of the day you've come out of that looking really good. So definitely the cooling off period sometimes is a little bit of bread and butter. It's the way to deal with some of these things, especially if someone wants a rise out of you. They're doing it to pick at you, for you to lose control and have a go at them. So yeah, definitely cooling off period.
That can be taken from both sides, because me naturally I would probably say something and then regret it later, whereas I appreciate on the other end of the spectrum there might be someone that wouldn't say anything at all and then go away thinking, oh, I wish I'd have said that, I wish I'd have said that. And in certain scenarios that is me too, just depending on who it is. So that is also a good bit of advice, I think, and just a bit of a tip for just anyone, no matter how you naturally handle conflict, just taking that bit of time and trying to think of it through a different light. Think about it when you're a bit calmer. Look at the situation. If something still makes you angry, then that's okay. You are allowed to have these feelings, but it's just how you respond to them. So that's a big thing that I think that we're all in agreement on, that's a good thing that we should try to practice.
I was just going to say what Alice was talking about, and when you learn how to respond differently, you end up teaching other people. So then they're like, oh, I really liked how she reacted to that, and then they use it themselves, and then it passes on. And then so the way that Shanika was talking about, the fact of don't respond straight away, that's a really good method to deal with conflict, because then you're not impulsive, you're not reacting impulsively, and then it helps you to develop as a person as well. Do you know what I mean? It helps you to realise everybody gets older and might have kids of their own and stuff like that.
100%. So now we've had a little look at what are the feelings that we think of, could we have a little look a bit deeper into our own individual relationships to conflict? So obviously at LEAP we've been looking a lot into fight, flight and freeze and what they mean to us. So fight, that naturally to me springs to mind aggressive, heated, verbal or physical arguments, and then flight where you try and just run away from the situation. You don't want to be participating in any sort of conflict whatsoever, and you just think it's best to just leave. And they also freeze is where you just don't feel like you've got the ability to do either leave or fight back your opinion, so you're just stuck in that same reoccurring scenario. So thinking about our individual relationships to that, I know that we've already touched on it briefly, and I said that mine would naturally be fight, depending on who it would be with. So if it's someone that's closer to me, I tend to be more verbal and more comfortable to put my opinion across, and sometimes that's when not nicer things come out. Depending on who it might be, sometimes I might also be a bit of a freeze where I don't know how to kind of say, look, I'm not happy with this and I'm leaving. But also at the same time, I don't know how to fight my argument across back. So yeah, I think it's not just one for me, it's a bit of two.
For me, the freeze, flight and fight, I don't think I'll ever do the same one with the same person. So like, say for instance, a family member or a friend, I would normally fight. I don't think I would ever do the flight one. And then the freeze one, it would depend. Like if it was like a workplace or it was like a professional meeting or something, I think I would freeze and just not be part of it at all. But I definitely think the closer to me, the more I want to fight and stand my ground. And I think the less that I know you, the more I want to stand back and say nothing. I think it depends on who it is and what the conflict is to then how I would react to it.
Yeah, I get you on that one. Let's go to Alice.
So when I was younger, I'd almost be very silent, and I used to get in a lot of physical fights when I was younger. Yeah, I'd just be quiet for a while, and usually they'd put their hands on me and I would never allow that, so then we'd fight. But now, God, these days, I'd run a mile, literally, or I'd roll myself a mile anyway, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like conflict. This is kind of in the real world, so since I became disabled, I feel less power in my own ability. So yeah, no, it's definitely a flight at the moment, but obviously with family members, I'm very fiery, and anyone close to me. With friends, I'm quite respectful. I'd be like, this is a little boundary of mine, you're kind of overstepping it, just letting you be aware that I don't like this. And, you know, because some people don't realise that they're doing that. Some people aren't self-aware. Maybe you haven't made yourself clear on that's a boundary. So the first thing I do is usually say, oh, this is a boundary, don't overstep that. And if they carry on doing it, then I'll get a bit feisty. But with family, they know my boundaries. They've known me all my life. Like, they know full well what they're doing. So I am quite fiery in that sense. When I was younger, it was a lot of screaming and fighting, and where everything was just up in the air with being in care. Like, the social workers were just very disrespectful and rude. My parents were fighting amongst each other, and just, it was so stressful that the second I felt I wasn't being understood, I was being misjudged, or someone was literally being nasty to me in some way or another, I felt so like trampled on by like everyone around me that I would fight to the death. I was so feisty and so eager for people to not disrespect my boundaries that I would just lose myself in the anger, and it was always the same wound they were opening up. Like, they'd say one word to me and it would be like a whole history of trauma that had just been triggered by that one word, and I'd be fighting everyone that had ever upset me of that one person. So like, I think trauma is something as well that you have to be aware of. Like, you need to know your triggers. You need to realise that this one thing that was said, you know, the hurt you're feeling isn't for that one word, it's for everything else that you've experienced. So that's something that I got to learn as well. So yeah, but now I'm way more reserved. I've got so much more self-awareness.
Yeah, I think the thing that I took from that was a big part of reflection that you've done on yourself, how you've reflected what your relationship used to be like to conflict. And I think that could be the same for quite a lot of us, that over the years our relationship to conflict has changed, and we do evolve, and we respond to things in different ways. It's constantly about reflecting and thinking about how we handle things and how we could better handle things in the future. But yeah, it's one reoccurring thing is like that it doesn't always have to be the same either for the same person. So conflict comes to us a lot in different ways. Shanika, how would you say you would naturally deal with conflict?
Well, for me, for most of my life, I usually just freeze. freeze and then think about it in my head. Oh, I should have said that. I should have done that. But as you grow and you become older, you kind of realize that part of it is because I didn't have boundaries. So as you grow older, you kind of realize you have to set boundaries. You have to let people know when they're pushing the boundaries. Yeah. And if, these people actually mean you good and want to be in your life, they will listen and, make changes. If not, then they're not your friends. So for me, I hate conflict. And this is why I probably don't have a lot of friends, because I just cannot handle the conflict. But now I've actually seen growth in myself where I'll actually say something. Before I never used to. I just used to keep quiet and just internalize it.
It's good that you're setting them boundaries and making people know that this isn't okay to overstep this one. And that's just another big part of reflecting as well, I think, and just thinking, how do I want my life to be? What am I going to accept and what am I not going to accept? And it comes down to, how are you acting and how are people acting towards you? You've got to look at your own actions. How am I treating that person in turn for them to treat me this way? And then you decide, is it a them problem or is it a me problem? And if it's a them problem, then setting them boundaries and telling them, hang on a second, I'm not happy with that. But if it's a you thing, being able to recognise that and change it. And this is what we're trying to get across, is that conflict isn't always a bad thing. You can take so many positives from it. Anya, what would you say you would normally do?
Honestly, I think I would potentially fight no matter who it is. I have always been a very hot-headed person, just like my mother. I don't think I would really do anything else. It's like when someone just comes up all in my face and starts, yapping at me, it's like I all of a sudden just see red, and it's like, well, I've not done anything wrong, so I'm just going to stick up for myself, even if no one else is. Because if you sit back and let them get away with it, they're going to think that they can do it to other people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. I would like to say that I'm different from when I was younger, but I really am not. I probably think that I've got a lot worse. There was this one time I was on the bus, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago or so, and this old guy got on the bus and I was with my pregnant friend. This guy behind said, get up, give the man a seat. So obviously, because of social distancing, even if I had got up, he still then can't sit down next to her. So I looked round to go and say to him, look, I'm really sorry, my friend's pregnant, because of social distancing, he still wouldn't be allowed to sit down. And he just got so rude. And he then got up and come up all into my face, he had no mask on. And I was just like, no, please, just get away. And got to the point where I just saw such a red page. I just wanted to throttle him. Yeah. Literally, I just felt so angry. Yeah, he literally put the blame all on me, like it was my fault. That's another thing that really upsets me, is the fact, because I'm a young person, they think, one, I should be getting up and giving everyone my seat, and two, that because I'm also young, I'm a bad person, because obviously young people get a bad name from older people.
Feel you on that. Maybe one thing that would be good to look at next week is how that always works for us, how when we react to conflict in these certain ways, how that always works out, whether it's a good outcome or whether sometimes it's just not the outcome we're wanting at all, maybe how we can improve that. Yeah, so let's go to Jade quickly.
So basically, when I was younger, I would probably flight, because I used to just let everybody take advantage of me and stuff like that. But as I've got older, I've realised that I can't let people do that anymore, because it really started affecting me, and I was just giving things away that I shouldn't be. And so now I would like to think that I would fight it, but sometimes, and I go, right, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say that, and then see when it comes, I'm like, holy shit, I can't say what I was going to say. I can't get it out. It's kind of like my brain just goes,
yeah.
And it's like I'm a potato and I just stand there pure still as anything. So yeah, sometimes I'm a combination between flight, fight and freeze. And when I do fight it, my whole body shakes. Yeah. So even if I do fight it, people get the thrill out of having
Affecting
conflict
you.
with me because they think that they're winning, and I'm like, no, you're not. I'm shaking because I'm so angry.
Yeah, it's the adrenaline.
I get that. I think everyone's like kind of connected in a sense that we all kind of deal with conflict in different ways sometimes, like, or whether it's been with previous when we was younger, we've dealt with things differently, or whether it might be with different people, how we handle it different. It's that the common denominator is it is different, you know, it's never always the same. But one thing I just thought it'd be good to think about is if we was to tell us younger self one thing when we were thinking about conflict, what would it be? So I would more than likely just tell myself, like, it's okay, it's going to get better. You know, the conflicts that are arising, you will manage them better in time. If there's anyone else that'd like to add on that?
I'd probably tell myself, like, you don't have anything to prove, because that was one thing. Like, I was fighting my battles when, to be honest with you, I shouldn't have been in the situations I was in. Like, I might have been right in those situations, but the situations, I shouldn't have been there. In general, like, I was either in a park drunk or somewhere that I shouldn't be. You know, if I looked at it in a way like, yes, they did that wrong, but why was I there? What was I doing? It's self-reflection, and you're never going to be able to change anyone else, but the only person you can change is yourself. So what could you do differently? If you moved yourself out of that situation and wasn't there, you've still got your boundaries, but they're just not being trampled on. So for me, when I was younger, it would have been a good idea to maybe not put myself in positions where conflict was going to happen. And sometimes I fully knew it was going to happen. And I'd go to the places that, you know, because I had something to prove and they're not going to do this to me and blah, blah, blah. And I also used to fight a load of my friends' battles as well. Don't do that. Like, you can stand up for people, but don't jump in there and just make it all about you. Like, get out of it, leave it alone. Help your friend in other ways. Don't fight for them. Just bring them out of it with you, you know? That's what I'd tell myself.
Great stuff. What would you tell yourself, Shinka?
I would say to myself, love yourself more, have a voice, use your voice, and stand up for yourself.
Love it. What would you say, Ashley?
What I would say to my younger self is be patient. Everything takes time. And to pick what battles that I want to fight. And to know when to walk away and to know when to call it a day and take time out. And I think compared to myself now, I think a lot of it is like maturity, but taking time for me, like taking time out, taking that self-care and saying, no, actually, I'm not doing that. And it's like, it's okay to have a mental health day. It's okay to take time out. And like, I am important and I need to make sure that I treat myself as number one and I take care of me before anybody else.
100%. Anya, what would you say to your younger self?
To my younger self, I'd probably say fix up, look sharp, which is one of my on-point messages to what I wish I could have like listened to myself. Also, I would potentially say put your head down, you know, get on with things, because not everything is going to get you where you need to be in life, i.e. fighting isn't going to get you into, you know, good education. It's going to get you kicked out and stuff like that. So get on with everything, you know, stop thinking that you're the queen of the world and, you know...
I think we all think that at a younger age. We all think we're the all and end all and everything.
Yeah, it is the balance. Thinking you are the queen, but also being humble enough about it as well. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. What would you say to your younger self, Jade?
I'd probably say don't let people take the piss out of you. Don't be so scared of everybody. And just like have a bit more faith in yourself, to actually believe that you can like stick up for yourself, and just like don't be so gullible. That's another thing, because when I was younger, the people you would use that to take the piss. So yeah, I'd probably just say like just own your shit, basically. Sorry for swearing so much, but that's just the
of
how I would like it to be.
No, I agree. I think that's all lovely things to say to us younger selves. I just wish we could do it. I wish we could do that to ourselves so we could listen to it. But yeah, I think that's great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for sharing all that stuff.
Thank you.
Evie, you didn't share what you.
Yeah, what would you say to your
I said just to know everything's going to be okay, you know, to keep going. If you feel like at the time that your world's collapsing and you can't see forward past that year or something like that, that it's okay, you know, things will get better. They definitely will.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Conflict.
We'd love to hear from you, so if you'd like to get in touch, you can reach us on letstalkconflict@leapcc.org.uk or find us on Twitter and Instagram at leap_cc.
This podcast has been produced in partnership with Leap Confronting Conflict and edited by Helena Webb.
Let's Talk Conflict has been supported by the Esme Fairburn Foundation, the Kurt and Magda Stern Foundation, the Treebeard Trust and the Rain Foundation.
Next week, we will be asking the question, how well do you know yourself? We will explore the relationship we have with ourselves and look back at the relationships we had with our younger selves and the advice we would give.